Let me ask you something most men are afraid to admit. How much of your confidence disappears when she stops replying? How much of your mood depends on whether she praises you, desires you, chooses you? Be honest. Because there was a time in my life when a single message from a woman could elevate my entire day, and a few hours of silence could quietly destroy it. I thought that was love. I thought that was passion. It wasn't. It was dependence disguised as romance. And the dangerous part? Most men don't even realize they are living for approval. They call it attraction. They call it effort. They call it being a good man. But a man who needs to be chosen will always feel one step away from losing himself. Tonight, we talk about something uncomfortable, but liberating. Why you must stop seeking a woman's validation, and start becoming the man who validates himself. Welcome to the channel, Stoic Love Wisdom. This is where every story and lesson about love will help you find the answer. Today, we will explore a new perspective through the topic, don't seek value from other women instead of valuing yourself. These are real-life experiences and profound lessons that will change the way you perceive love. Follow me, because the most surprising and interesting things are still waiting for you ahead. Before starting, find a quiet place, put on your headphones and relax your mind. Let the sharing in this video help you feel more fully and enjoy every meaningful moment. Are you ready to embark on this journey? Let's begin. Part 1, The Invisible Chain, when a man becomes a beggar for approval. Let me speak to you not as a guru, not as a preacher, but as a man who has bled quietly and learned slowly. There was a time when I believed my value increased when a woman smiled at me. When she replied quickly, I felt important. When she praised me, I felt powerful. When she withdrew, I felt small. And I did not realize it then, but I had handed over my internal kingdom to someone who did not even know she was ruling it. That is the tragedy of many men. They do not lose women. They lose themselves trying to be chosen. The subtle addiction. Seeking validation from women is not weakness in itself. It is natural to want to be desired. But when your identity depends on her approval, you are no longer loving, you are negotiating your worth. The ancient Stoics understood something modern men forget. You suffer not because of what happens, but because of the meaning you assign to it. Marcus Aurelius wrote that a man's mind becomes colored by his dominant thoughts. If your dominant thought is, does she like me? Then your mood, confidence, and direction are no longer yours. You wake up and check your phone before you check your purpose. You measure your attractiveness by her attention. You measure your intelligence by her reaction. You measure your masculinity by her desire. And slowly, without noticing, you shrink. Approval is a moving target. Here is what experience teaches you. A woman's approval is fluid. It shifts with her emotions, her stress, her environment, her season of life. One week she admires your ambition. The next week she says you work too much. One day she loves your independence. Another day she calls you distant. If your self-worth rises and falls with her moods, you will live in emotional turbulence. This is not because women are evil. It is because you are unstable inside. And instability is unattractive. The Stoic does not seek control over others. He seeks mastery over himself. The illusion of winning her. Many young men approach love like a competition. They ask, how do I impress her? How do I outperform other men? How do I say the right thing? But the real question is, why do you need to impress anyone to feel worthy? When you chase approval, you subconsciously communicate. I am not enough yet. Women sense that energy. Not consciously perhaps, but instinctively. A man who needs validation radiates hunger. And hunger is rarely respected. Confidence is not loud. It is quiet sufficiency. You do not need applause to know your value. I learned this the hard way. I remember a relationship where I tried to be everything. Stronger. Funnier. More romantic. More successful. I studied her preferences like an exam. I adjusted my behavior to maintain her interest. I filtered my words to avoid conflict. On the surface, it looked like effort. In truth, it was fear. Fear of losing her. Fear of not being enough. Fear of being replaced. And fear always leaks. The more I tried to secure her approval, the more I lost my center. Eventually, she said something that changed my life. You used to feel grounded. Now you feel reactive. That was the moment I realized. I had abandoned myself in order to be loved. And no woman can respect a man who abandons himself. Self-approval is the foundation of masculine peace. Let me tell you something that may sting. If you do not approve of yourself, no woman's approval will ever satisfy you. You will constantly need more. More reassurance. More compliments. More attention. More proof. It becomes emotional dependence disguised as romance. The Stoic principle is simple. What is not under your control should not define your state. A woman's feelings are not under your control. Her attraction is not under your control. Her loyalty is not fully under your control. But your character, your discipline, your direction, those are yours. When you approve of yourself, not arrogantly, but truthfully, something shifts. You stop performing. You start expressing. You stop chasing. You start choosing. You stop fearing loss. You start valuing alignment. And paradoxically, that is when you become more attractive. The difference between desire and dependence. It is healthy to desire a woman. It is dangerous to depend on her validation. Desire says, I enjoy you. Dependence says, I need you to confirm that I am enough. The first creates polarity. The second creates pressure. And pressure suffocates attraction. Many men believe love means sacrifice. Yes, but not self-erasure. You do not sacrifice your spine to hold someone's hand. The Stoic man understands this balance. He can love deeply without kneeling for approval. He can admire beauty without worshipping it. He can walk away without collapsing. That is inner sovereignty. Why this matters more than you think. When you seek validation from women, you unknowingly betray your mission. Dilute your authenticity. Erode your self-respect. And here is the brutal truth. Women are attracted to men who respect themselves more than they crave approval. Not selfishness. Not arrogance. Self-respect. When you approve of yourself, you speak without overthinking. You act without begging. You set boundaries without guilt. You accept rejection without imploding. That emotional stability is rare. And rarity commands value. The quiet power of internal authority. The Stoic does not ask the world, am I enough? He asks himself. Did I act with integrity? Did I honor my standards? Did I move toward my purpose? If the answer is yes, he sleeps well. Even if she leaves. Even if she criticizes. Even if she chooses another man. Because his worth was never outsourced. Let this be the first lesson. If you make a woman the judge of your value, you become a defendant in your own life. But if you become the judge of your own character, you walk into love as a king, not a beggar. And in the next part, we will speak about the hidden psychological traps that keep men addicted to female validation, and why breaking free feels terrifying at first. Because freedom always feels uncomfortable to the one who has lived in chains. Stay with me. Have you ever realized that, in love, moments of silence are sometimes more powerful than 1,000 words? Because in silence, we can hear our heartbeat more clearly and feel the presence of the other person more deeply. Here, I want to explore with you that strength, peace, and stability even when love goes through challenges. If you feel that these shares bring you something positive, please click like to support. And if you haven't clicked subscribe, do it now, so you don't miss any insight into love and maturity. I also hope to hear your story. What is the most valuable lesson that love has taught you? Please share in the comments section so we can learn and be inspired together. Come on, let's move on to the next part with a more prepared mind. Part 2, The Psychological Trap, Why Men Crave Female Validation. Let me take you deeper. Because understanding why you seek her approval is more important than simply telling yourself to stop. Most men do not chase validation consciously. They are driven by invisible programming, conditioning that began long before their first relationship. And until you see the trap, you will continue walking into it. The boy who wanted to be chosen. Before you were a man, you were a boy. And as a boy, you learned something dangerous. Good behavior earns approval. Smile, and you are praised. Perform, and you are rewarded. Obey, and you are accepted. You were conditioned to associate love with performance. Now fast forward. You meet a woman you desire. Without realizing it, your nervous system activates the same script. Be impressive. Don't mess this up. Earn her approval. You are no longer acting from strength. You are reacting from childhood programming. This is not weakness. It is unconscious habit. The Stoic path begins with awareness. Validation is a dopamine drug. Let's speak honestly. When a woman you like compliments you, it feels intoxicating. When she texts first, your chest expands. When she says she misses you, your ego ignites. When she posts you publicly, you feel significant. Your brain rewards you. It releases dopamine, the same chemical triggered by gambling, social media, and risk-taking. You become addicted to microdoses of approval. And addiction always creates dependency. If she withdraws attention, your brain reacts like it lost a reward. Anxiety. Overthinking. Compulsive checking. You tell yourself it's love. But often, it's withdrawal. A Stoic man learns to observe this reaction without obeying it. You are not your impulses. You are the one who witnesses them. The ego's hidden fear. At the core of validation seeking is not love. It is fear. Fear of being average. Fear of being replaceable. Fear of not measuring up to other men. You scroll social media. You see men with money. Men with muscles. Men with status. You compare. Then you project that insecurity onto women. She won't like me unless I become more. So you chase external upgrades. More style. More charm. More success. More game. Self-improvement is powerful, but when driven by insecurity, it becomes performance. Epictetus taught that we are disturbed not by things, but by our judgments about them. The event, she didn't reply. Your judgment, I'm losing value. That judgment creates suffering, not her silence. Why breaking free feels terrifying. Here is the uncomfortable truth. If you stop seeking validation, you will feel emptiness at first. Why? Because you have been outsourcing your worth. Imagine removing a crutch you have leaned on for years. Your legs will shake. You may experience reduced excitement, emotional quiet, a strange sense of detachment. Many men misinterpret this calm as boredom. But it is not boredom. It is neutrality. And neutrality is the birthplace of strength. A man who is not emotionally dependent becomes harder to manipulate. He cannot be controlled by praise. He cannot be destabilized by withdrawal. And that kind of man is rare. The subtle manipulation dynamic. Let me be clear. Not all women consciously manipulate. But attention is power. If she senses that her approval controls your emotional state, a subtle imbalance forms. She becomes the evaluator. You become the applicant. She tests. You prove. She withholds. You pursue harder. This dynamic destroys polarity. Attraction thrives on strength meeting softness. Not insecurity chasing validation. When you need approval, you unconsciously give away authority. And authority, internal authority, is the essence of masculine presence. The difference between confidence and performance. A performing man constantly scans. Did that impress her? Was that attractive? Did I say the right thing? A confident man asks. Was I authentic? Did I enjoy myself? Did I honor my standards? The first is externally oriented. The second is internally anchored. The Stoics emphasized control over perception. Seneca wrote about the danger of living according to the opinions of others. If you live for applause, you will fear silence. And silence is inevitable. Love without self-abandonment. Here is where many misunderstand. Rejecting validation seeking does not mean becoming cold. It means loving from fullness, not from lack. When you are internally validated, her praise becomes a bonus, not a necessity. Her criticism becomes feedback, not devastation. Her departure becomes painful, but not identity-shattering. You remain intact. This is emotional sovereignty. And women feel the difference immediately. There is calm in your presence. There is no grasping. No subtle begging energy. You enjoy her, but you do not cling. You value her, but you do not worship. You desire her, but you do not need her to complete you. That balance is magnetic. The first internal shift. If you want to begin breaking the cycle, start here. Before speaking to a woman you like, ask yourself. If she gave me zero validation today, would I still respect myself? If the answer is no, you have work to do. And that work is internal. Build a life you approve of. Develop skills you are proud of. Strengthen your body. Sharpen your mind. Honor your word. When you respect yourself deeply, validation becomes irrelevant. Not because you don't enjoy it, but because you don't depend on it. Let this settle. The moment you stop chasing female approval, you stop negotiating your worth. And in part 3, we will explore something even more powerful. How self-approval transforms your presence. And why women respond differently to a man who is internally grounded. Because attraction is not created by performance. It is revealed by stability. Part 3, the shift, when a man approves of himself. There is a moment in a man's life when something changes. It is not loud. It is not dramatic. It does not come with applause. It is a quiet internal decision. I no longer need to be chosen to feel worthy. That decision, if truly lived, alters everything. Your posture changes. Your tone slows down. Your reactions soften. Your standards sharpen. And women feel it before you ever say a word. The energy of internal grounding. Most men walk into interactions slightly leaning forward. Leaning for approval. Leaning for signs. Leaning for reassurance. When you approve of yourself, you stop leaning. You stand. There is no urgency in your movements. No hunger in your eyes. No subtle anxiety in your speech. You are present. Not performing. That presence creates tension. And tension creates attraction. Because attraction is not born from effort. It is born from polarity. When you are emotionally stable, she feels safe to be expressive. When you are centered, she can relax. When you are not chasing, she becomes curious. Self-approval creates emotional stability. Let me tell you something that only experience teaches. Women test stability, not consciously, but instinctively. She may cancel plans. She may tease. She may disagree. She may withdraw slightly. Not always to manipulate, but to observe. If your mood collapses every time she shifts, you signal fragility. But if you remain calm, grounded, and unaffected, you signal strength. Marcus Aurelius wrote about remaining like the rock against which waves constantly crash, yet it stands firm. That rock is not emotionless. It is unshaken. When your self-worth is internal, you do not overreact. You do not panic text. You do not beg for reassurance. You do not over-explain yourself. You respond, you do not react. And that difference is everything. The death of overthinking. Approval-seeking breeds overthinking. What did she mean? Was that message too short? Should I reply now or later? Did I mess it up? But when you approve of yourself, the mental noise quiets. You say what you mean. You mean what you say. You allow outcomes to unfold. You stop trying to control perception. Because here is the truth. If someone misunderstands your authentic self, performing will only delay rejection, not prevent it. Self-approval liberates you from the exhausting theater of image management. You no longer shape-shift. And that consistency builds trust. Attraction to certainty. Women are often drawn to men who know themselves. Not men who are loud. Not men who dominate conversations. But men who are internally certain. Certainty is rare. Most men fluctuate based on feedback. Complimented. Confident. Ignored. Insecure. Desired. Powerful. Rejected. Deflated. That emotional volatility communicates dependence. But the man who approves of himself carries quiet certainty. He knows what he stands for, what he tolerates, what he desires, what he will walk away from. And that clarity is magnetic. Because clarity creates direction. And direction is masculine energy. You become harder to manipulate. When you do not rely on her validation, something powerful happens. You become unhookable. Praise does not inflate you. Silence does not deflate you. Criticism does not shatter you. You listen. You evaluate. You decide. This internal filter changes the dynamic. Instead of asking, "Do you approve of me?" you begin asking, "Do I approve of this interaction?" That shift restores balance. You are no longer auditioning. You are selecting. And selection is power. The subtle increase in respect. Here is something most men never notice. Respect often precedes deep attraction. When you respect yourself, you do not tolerate disrespect disguised as jokes. You do not compete for attention. You do not accept crumbs. You set boundaries calmly. Not aggressively. Not emotionally. Not defensively. Simply firmly. Epictetus said that no man is free who is not master of himself. Mastery does not mean control over others. It means control over your reactions. When you stop reacting to every emotional fluctuation, your value rises naturally. Because scarcity increases value. And emotional stability is scarce. The shift in communication. Let me make this practical. When you approve of yourself, you speak slower. You do not rush to fill silence. You are comfortable with pauses. You hold eye contact without forcing intensity. You compliment without expecting one back. You express desire without pleading. And if she does not reciprocate, you do not spiral. You observe. You adjust. Or you walk away. No drama. No resentment. No ego battles. Just composure. That composure is deeply attractive. Love without losing yourself. Here is the ultimate transformation. You begin loving from abundance. Not because you need someone, but because you choose someone. You can say, "I enjoy you," without meaning, "Please don't leave." You can invest without over-investing. You can care without clinging. And paradoxically, that emotional independence often strengthens the connection. Because attraction requires space to breathe. When you no longer suffocate love with insecurity, love has room to grow. The man who walks away calmly. There will be moments when things do not work out. She may choose differently. She may lose interest. She may change. The old version of you would panic. The grounded version pauses. You feel disappointment, but not collapse. You reflect, but do not self-destruct. You move forward, without bitterness. That calm departure leaves a stronger impression than desperate persistence ever could. Because a man who can walk away peacefully is a man who does not abandon himself. Let this sink in. When you approve of yourself, you stop trying to be impressive. And when you stop trying to be impressive, you become powerful. In part 4, we will go deeper still. We will talk about standards, boundaries, and the courage it takes to risk losing someone rather than losing yourself. Because self-approval is not passive. It demands discipline. And discipline is where true masculine freedom begins. In love, sometimes silence is the answer. It gives us time to listen to ourselves and understand the other person's heart better. That's also the reason I share stories on this channel, so that you have a pause, a peaceful space to reflect. If you find this meaningful, please click like and don't forget to subscribe, so that we can continue to accompany each other on the journey to find a peaceful and profound love. Now, let's continue the rest with me. Part 4, Standards, Boundaries, and the Discipline of Self-Respect. Now we arrive at the part most men avoid. Because approving of yourself is not just a mindset. It is a discipline. And discipline is uncomfortable. It requires you to risk losing someone in order to keep yourself. Most men say they value themselves. Very few are willing to prove it. Self-approval without standards is delusion. Let me be direct with you. If you say you approve of yourself, but you tolerate disrespect, inconsistency, and emotional games, you do not approve of yourself. You fear being alone. Real self-approval creates standards. Not unrealistic fantasies. Not ego-driven checklists. But clear internal lines. You know how you expect to be spoken to. What behavior you will not tolerate. What kind of effort you require. What values must align. And once you define those lines, you protect them. Calmly. Consistently. Without apology. The courage to disappoint. Here is where men struggle. When you stop seeking validation, you will disappoint some women. Because you will stop bending. You will stop over-accommodating. You will stop saying yes when you mean no. And that shift may trigger resistance. She might say, You've changed. You used to be sweeter. You're different now. And she will be right. You are different. You are no longer negotiating your identity. Seneca wrote that we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Many men imagine that setting boundaries will destroy attraction. In reality, clear boundaries often increase respect. And respect fuels desire. Boundaries are not anger. Let me clarify something important. A boundary is not aggression. It is not shouting. It is not lecturing. It is not punishing. It is calm refusal. It sounds like, "I'm not comfortable with that. I don't tolerate that kind of communication. If that's what you want, we may not be aligned." No drama. No emotional explosion. Just clarity. When you deliver boundaries emotionally, it looks reactive. When you deliver them calmly, it looks powerful. And power, when quiet, is deeply attractive. The discipline of walking away. This is the hardest lesson. Self-approval means being willing to walk away. Not as a tactic. Not to manipulate. But because your standards matter more than temporary attachment. Many men stay in situations that drain them because they fear starting over. They fear loneliness. They fear losing access. They fear competition. So they compromise slowly. They laugh at jokes that disrespect them. They accept mixed signals. They tolerate emotional inconsistency. And over time, resentment grows. But resentment is simply self-betrayal that lasted too long. A Stoic man understands impermanence. Epictetus taught that you should kiss your loved one remembering they are mortal. This is not coldness. It is perspective. Nothing is guaranteed. Not attention. Not affection. Not permanence. When you internalize that truth, you stop clinging. You appreciate, without gripping. When you stop chasing, you start evaluating. Here is the shift that changes everything. Instead of asking, "How do I keep her interested?" you begin asking, "Is this aligned with my life? Does she bring peace or chaos? Does she respect your mission? Does she elevate or distract?" Self-approval turns you from pursuer into selector. And selection creates balance. You are no longer grateful just to be chosen. You are intentional about who earns access to your time and energy. That alone transforms your presence. The emotional detox phase. I will warn you. When you begin living this way, there may be a period of loneliness. Because you will reject dynamics that once fed your ego. Less drama. Less intensity. Less validation spikes. At first, it may feel dull. But what you are experiencing is emotional detox. You are recalibrating your nervous system. You are learning to feel stable without external stimulation. This is maturity. And maturity is calm. The chaos that once excited you will begin to exhaust you. The inconsistency that once hooked you will begin to repel you. Your taste changes. Because you have changed. Attraction shifts when you shift. Women who are emotionally healthy will respond positively to this version of you. Because stability feels safe. Clarity feels grounded. Confidence without arrogance feels rare. Women who thrive on chaos may drift away. And that is not loss. That is filtration. Not everyone is meant to stay in your life. And self-approval gives you the courage to accept that. The internal contract. Let me leave you with this principle. Make an internal contract with yourself. I will not trade my self-respect for temporary validation. Repeat it until it becomes identity. Because the world will test it. Attractive women will test it. Loneliness will test it. Desire will test it. But every time you choose yourself over approval, you strengthen your spine. And a man with a strong spine walks differently. In part 5, we will close this journey. We will talk about the final transformation. How a man who no longer seeks validation becomes magnetic without trying. Because the ultimate paradox of love is this. When you stop needing to be chosen, you often become the man everyone notices. And that is not coincidence. It is alignment. Part 5, The Sovereign Man. Magnetic without needing to be seen. We have come to the final piece. And if you have followed closely, you will notice something subtle. This journey was never really about women. It was about sovereignty. About reclaiming the authority over your own worth. Because the man who no longer seeks validation does not become cold. He becomes whole. The paradox of attraction. Here is the irony life teaches you, sometimes painfully. The moment you stop needing to be chosen is the moment you become more desirable. Why? Because neediness creates pressure. And pressure suffocates attraction. But self-sufficiency creates space. And space allows curiosity. When you are not scanning for approval, you smile naturally. You speak honestly. You listen without agenda. You leave conversations without anxiety. There is no hidden contract in your energy. You are not giving to receive. You are expressing because it is who you are. That authenticity is rare. And rarity draws attention. The calm that commands respect. There is a specific kind of calm that only comes from self-approval. It is not passive. It is not detached. It is grounded. You no longer feel the urge to prove your masculinity. You no longer compete for attention. You no longer perform to be admired. You simply exist with conviction. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that he did not need the applause of others, only alignment with his own principles. That is internal authority. When you walk into a room with that energy, something shifts. You are not the loudest. You are not the flashiest. But you are steady. And steadiness feels powerful. Because in a world of emotional volatility, stability is strength. Loving without losing yourself. Let me be clear. Self-approval does not mean you will not feel. You will still desire. You will still care. You will still feel pain if something ends. But you will not collapse. Because your identity is not attached to being wanted. You can say, I value you. Without meaning. My worth depends on you. That distinction changes everything. Love becomes choice. Not survival. And when love is chosen freely, not driven by insecurity, it becomes deeper. You give more purely. You receive more calmly. You detach more gracefully if needed. That emotional maturity creates long-term stability. And stability is what sustains attraction beyond the initial spark. The end of emotional reactivity. Think back to who you were when you sought validation. Every message mattered too much. Every delay felt personal. Every disagreement felt threatening. Now imagine this version of you. She replies late. You continue your day. She disagrees. You listen, then respond calmly. She pulls away slightly. You observe without chasing. This is not indifference. It is regulation. Epictetus taught that the key to freedom is understanding what is within your control. Her emotions are not. Your response is. When you master that distinction, peace replaces panic. And peace is magnetic. The man who chooses, not begs. There is a profound shift when you stop asking, am I enough for her? And start asking, is this aligned with the life I am building? That question changes your posture. You stop shrinking. You stop overgiving. You stop tolerating misalignment. You begin evaluating compatibility instead of chasing chemistry. Because chemistry without respect burns fast. Compatibility with respect endures. Self-approval gives you the patience to wait for alignment. And patience is a form of power. Why women respond differently? Let me speak from experience. When you no longer radiate subtle neediness, women relax around you. There is no pressure to constantly reassure you. No emotional weight they must carry. You are solid on your own. That solidity creates safety. And safety allows feminine energy to open. When she feels she is with a man who does not need her approval to feel worthy, she can admire you freely. Not because you demand it, but because you embody stability. Respect grows. Desire deepens. Trust strengthens. Not through tricks. Through internal work. The final truth. Let me leave you with something simple. You were never meant to beg for approval. Not from women. Not from society. Not from anyone. You were meant to build yourself so completely. That validation becomes optional. When you approve of yourself, rejection refines you. Praise humbles you. Love enhances you. Loss teaches you. But nothing defines you. Because you define yourself. That is freedom. And freedom is attractive. The sovereign mindset. A sovereign man wakes up and asks, did I act with integrity? Did I honor my standards? Did I move forward today? If the answer is yes, he rests well. If a woman loves him, he appreciates it. If she leaves, he grieves, but he stands. Because his foundation was never built on her approval. It was built on his character. And character does not fluctuate with attention. Remember this. If you make a woman the source of your value, you will always fear losing her. But if you become the source of your own value, you can love without fear. And a man who loves without fear is not controlled by desire. He is guided by choice. That is Stoic love. That is masculine sovereignty. And that is the kind of presence that does not chase attention, yet quietly commands it. Conclusion. If there is one lesson I want you to carry with you, it is this. Stop placing your worth in someone else's hands. Not because women are unworthy of admiration. Not because love is weakness. But because no external approval can ever stabilize an internal doubt. The man who seeks validation lives in quiet fear. Fear of silence. Fear of comparison. Fear of replacement. And fear makes him negotiate his standards, dilute his character, and perform instead of live. But the man who approves of himself moves differently. He does not rush to impress. He does not panic at distance. He does not collapse at rejection. He builds. He improves. He reflects. He stands. This is not arrogance. It is alignment. When your value comes from your discipline, your integrity, your growth, love becomes a choice, not a necessity. You no longer chase approval, you offer presence. You no longer beg to be chosen, you choose wisely. And here is the paradox. The less you need validation, the more attractive you become. Because confidence rooted in self-respect is rare. And rarity commands attention without demanding it. So build yourself in silence. Strengthen your mind. Honor your word. Live by your standards. Let a woman admire you, but never define you. Because when you become the source of your own approval, you don't just improve your relationships. You reclaim your power. Thank you for watching today's video. I'm so happy to share my lessons about love and relationships with you. I hope you learned something new and can apply it to your life. If you find the video useful, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next videos. Thank you for always accompanying and supporting me. Wish you a good day and don't forget to love yourself a lot.